my sister had already studied law school, and I got really fascinated with that. I thought, you know what, I could probably make a pretty decent lawyer. I love arguing with people, and I can be fair.
One of the things is, why should anybody stay? Why should anybody stay and continue listening for the next hour?
Well, yeah, well, that would maybe be to hear some of the massive failures I've encountered. Not massive as such, but then my mom paid me like something to the equivalent of €2 an hour. He didn't know that,
Yeah, of course.
but that was like my first proper job. Yeah. So I wanted to learn French, then Italian, and then Spanish. But after a year in France, I met this gorgeous American girl, fell in love with her, and moved to New York instead. So I lived. After 2 years, my mom died very suddenly.
Oh my God.
She was out playing tennis, her stomach hurt, went to the hospital, dead 5 days later. So that was pretty rough. I was 24 or 5 at the time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What kind of pay did that create for you and your business? Let's rock and roll. So guys, we are back again with the Mega Podcast. Today, I have one of our newest members of the company, Niels. He's part of onboarding, and as the title says, problem crunching. Niels, I like to hand it right over to you. Who are you? What do you do? And why should anybody watching this stay for the next hour to hear what you have to say?
That's a lot of questions all at the same time. My name is Niels. I'm 50 years old. I've become a part of this team because I know two of the other guys on the team already. Two of the super tech nerds are my close friends for the past 25 years. And we are all entrepreneurs. I think most of us actually on the entire team are entrepreneurs, if not in actuality, then at least in spirit. So I've been an entrepreneur for the past 15, 20 years or so. But in actual fact, I've been trying to build my own things since I was like 10 years old. I remember running around in the neighborhood with my twin brother and trying to get people to pay us to mow their lawns when we were 7, 8, 9 years old. So that's always been in my blood. But of course, being an entrepreneurial spirit, you get ups and downs, and maybe that's something that we can talk about a little bit today, because it can't be all victories. And why do you then stay on that track in life? Why do you insist on being something so foolish as an entrepreneur? I joined Mega right before Christmas, so 3-4 weeks ago, and right now I'm doing onboarding for the team, but also bits and bobs, a whole lot of different things. I'm actually also kind of in charge of all the languages that we've got on our platform, and working with some of our bots on a very close basis, figuring out why they work as well as they do and why they don't work sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things is, why should anybody stay? Why should anybody stay and continue listening for the next hour?
Well, yeah, well, that would maybe be to hear some of the massive failures I've encountered. Not massive as such, but to hear a little bit about my crazy life. I don't think I'm your typical the road more traveled by. I'm definitely the road less traveled by kind of guy. I've been doing so many different things in my life. After high school, I went to live in France for a year with my twin brother. Our family had a summer house down there. My idea was to learn French, then Italian, and then Spanish. We already had French in school for 6 years. I started working actually in an Italian deli when I was 11 years old. So not old enough to get an actual salary, but my boss, my padrone, paid me in food every day and every night, and my mom paid me like something to the equivalent of €2 an hour. He didn't know that, but
yeah, of course.
But that was like my first proper job. Yeah. So I wanted to learn French, then Italian, and then Spanish. But after a year in France, I met this gorgeous American girl, fell in love with her, and moved to New York instead. So I lived over there for a year and a half. And then, but I've always been super fascinated with languages. So I got my Italian and my Spanish. I got that in the system later on. but that's another story, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so I lived in New York for a year and a half. She was Filipino, a second generation. Her parents were very Catholic and very much against the fact that we were together prior to being married or
Mm-hmm.
even, having any kind of relationship. And she knew that they would have that feeling, so she didn't tell them that I was living with her. And after 6 months or so of living together, her mom called her up in the middle of the night and said, I know something is going on. I can feel it in my bones. Tell me, be honest with me, is somebody living with you? Right, literally right in the middle of the night. And she was like, yes, it's true, Mom. Actually, I've met this Danish guy and he lives with me here in the apartment. And she's like, okay, put him on the phone. So she woke me up. It's my mom. Talk to her now. And then she gave me a really, really nice interview. Like, what are you doing? What are your plans? Da, 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 da. Her mom was a real go-getter. So it
Wow.
got off to a pretty rough start there, and she got the impression that I was some kind of gold digger who'd come to the States to try and see if I could get my hand on their money, which was like
Yeah.
the complete opposite, because I'm all Danes. I think we're not necessarily well off, but we have a very
Yeah.
strong social security net. So you don't get to be really, really poor in Denmark unless you almost kind of choose to. Of course, we have poor people, but not
Yeah.
to the same extent like we have in the States, for instance. And we
Yeah.
have rich
Yeah.
people, but also not to the same extent that we have in the States. But I mean, I come from a good family. We had plenty of money of our own, so that was not a worry for me. And I was not at all interested in their money. I was just in love
Uh-huh.
with their girl.
Of course.
So, and that put me in a bit of a tight spot between my girlfriend who loved me and her parents who hated me or disliked me, disapproved of me. And she had to
Mm-hmm.
kind of defend her position with me at the same time. And that in the end, it just became too much. And I said, you know what, forget about this. I'm going to go back to Denmark. And then we're going to carry on with a long distance relationship. And as with so many other long distance relationships, that only lasted for half a year. And then we had to call it quits.
Wow, what a journey.
So that was just the beginning of it. After I came back to Denmark, my sister had already studied law school, and I got really fascinated with that. I thought, you know what, I could probably make a pretty decent lawyer. I love arguing with people, and I can be fair,
Okay.
and I can be fairly convincing. I like the idea of running around in a fancy suit and tie and making a big load of money. So I thought, yeah, you know what, I'm going to study law as well. So I enrolled, I enlisted, I got accepted to the Copenhagen University Law School. And I studied there I studied there for 2 years, but I was actually enlisted for 3 years. But after 2 years, my mom died very
Oh
suddenly.
my God.
She was out
Sorry to
playing
hear that.
tennis, her stomach hurt, went to the hospital, dead 5 days later. So that was pretty rough. I was 24 or 5 at the time. So that came as a huge shock for me. And it really, really just put me in a completely different state of mind. I feel like when I look back that I was just literally sitting and looking out the window for a full year. Obviously I wasn't, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a huge shock for me. And when I kind of came back into reality and figured out, okay, I better go back to school and finish up the first part of the law school, I could just feel that it was so wrong for me. And I was like,
Yeah.
this this path here is going to take me to somewhere where, for the most part of my life, I will be dealing with people who are somehow fighting. They're arguing. They've got a dispute. And I will
Mm-hmm.
always be there to fight for one half of this dispute. And I don't really want it. That's not for me. I want to do something more creative,
Yeah.
whether it's an actual creative, as in the arts. I do a lot of painting as well, or just something where you build something or you make a service to make people feel happy. Yeah.
Of course.
So I decided to drop out of law school, and then I was like, what am I going to do here? I've always loved cooking. So
Yeah.
a good friend of mine who was living with me at the time, he uh, he was staying at his mom's loft, and I met him on the very first night. I met him. He said, "So what's up with you?" And he said, "I'm living at my mom's loft." And I said, "That's unacceptable. Come stay with me. You don't have to pay. It's fine." So he lived with me for 2 years,
Okay.
and his girlfriend was working as a waitress in a sushi restaurant. And I was thinking to myself, you know, if there's one cuisine that I don't really master at this point, it's the Japanese. And I really would like to know something about fish, because I knew a lot about French and Italian and some of the more European style cuisines.
Yeah.
But sushi is like a whole different ballgame. And I thought this could be fun. I went there to have a talk with the CEO of the company, and he said, "Sure. I mean, you have a really nice resume." He could also see that I'd worked as a waiter in the States when I was there. So he said, "Right, let's try and put you in the kitchen, and we'll see what happens." 6 months later, I was kitchen manager, just from zero to like, here we go, beautiful, excellent. Yeah, I learned it real quick, and I just took over the whole kitchen. And this is the biggest sushi chain in Denmark, so it was quite an accomplishment at the time. That led to my next adventure. I worked there for close to 2 years, and then I went to Thailand on a holiday with my good friend Nick. And we saw that they were building this nice little place, and we talked about it. We said, you know what, we could actually rent this place. It doesn't cost too much. We could build our own little sushi restaurant here, and then we can live on top of it. And we only have to invest like £10,000 each, and then that should sort us out. And I knew I was good for that money. He was good for it too. So I went home, quit my job, and we went to Thailand and opened the sushi restaurant. And I was living in Thailand for a year and a half with my own sushi restaurant.
Wow. Okay. Keep going.
That was a different story. Eventually, at the end, I found out it was not for me. Not Thailand as such. All the Thai people, they're super nice. And Thailand is an amazing place. But we ended up in one of the little islands, Koh Samui, and it's the island life that was not for me, because you
Really?
Yes, because it's amazing when you're a tourist. See?
Yeah.
But when you live there and you just get a whole new bunch of tourists every week, most of your relationships are kind of superficial, and a lot of our friends were workers who would. A lot of them actually British, scaffolding, carpenters, all these kind of manual laborers. So they would work like half a year at home and then go to Thailand and have vacation for half a year. But as it turns out, the best people, super nice people, but I did not have a lot in common with them. So
yeah,
our main topics would be football, how much did you get to drink last night, and who's playing who in pool. And that's a lot of fun if you're there for a week. But if you have a little bit more of an ambition in your life, then it's not enough. And I didn't feel that I did not really make those deep relationships, and I really missed that my friends from back home. So I decided to go back home, and I worked for another 4 or 5 years, 6 years as a sushi chef. Then, completely change of scenario. I joined up in my first proper startup with one of my friends. We did a mobile service. This was just before the launch of the iPhone. So we were able to take all your contacts from your mobile phone and put them up in our cloud server, which was amazing at the time. And then if you were to buy a new phone, you could download all those contacts onto your new phone, so you wouldn't have to manually put all your full contact book onto the phone again.
I remember that. That was about 2003, 2004. Is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Okay.
It ended up the company got sold to Vodafone for a huge bag of money, and right after that, they sunsetted it pretty much. I think because by then, iPhone and smartphones were really hitting the market. I don't think it was as interesting a case as it was when we built it and when they bought it. They could use that whole software journey and the team, but the product itself never survived.
So I'm taking some notes, and there's a few things that I definitely want to unpack here. Obviously, just on the point you just said, being at the right place at the right time. That's this opportunity with, for anybody who doesn't know Vodafone in the US, Vodafone is basically similar to Verizon. They are the biggest phone provider in the UK, if not Europe. Getting out of circles, I'm going to touch on that. I went through a similar situation at the age of 24, 25. My younger brother passed away. He was at college, heart just stopped, got a call the next day. I was always getting into trouble. So the police show up in my driveway. Me and my dad are fixing the car. And my dad said, "Get in the basement right now." Just go in the basement.
What?
Have you done something wrong? And I said, "No, I haven't done anything wrong this time." So I run
This
in the
time.
basement. Run in the basement. And you go in the kitchen and I just heard this loud scream. And I was like, holy shit, what's going on? This don't sound right. Went up. And that was the time, that was probably the worst, let's say, surprise I've ever had in my life. And that I spiraled completely out of control. But those ups and downs, that down was part of many ups and downs that helped me build a lot of resilience that I have today. And that's what I want to speak to you about. So one of the things that we're thinking about with Martin and the team at Mega, our branding and our exposure to the market, a lot of this podcast has shined a light on
Sean?
people's right. I don't know what the word is. It's it's highlighted people's levels of resilience. And I'm seeing a very common theme, a trending pattern with a lot of successful people being very resilient when times get tough and finding ways to bounce back. So your relationship, going to New York and being in that situation with that woman, then bouncing back from there after a breakup, that's never easy. Then going to Thailand and getting out of circles, that's very interesting. What was the first sign then for you that you were different? So obviously the conversations, the patterns of drinking and playing pool and the same conversation. What was the pattern, or what was the one thing that you identified that you saw that you was very different from the rest of the crowd you were surrounded by?
What, in Thailand, for instance? Or
Yeah,
just
in Thailand. We'll start in Thailand, then we can go outside of that.
I don't know. I think us entrepreneurs, we have this fire in the belly, and when you meet someone else who's like that, and when you meet someone like-minded, you spot each other quite easily, and it
Yep.
takes there's a certain bit of craziness, I think, in us, because the safe path is always just getting a proper job. Then you're going to get your pay on time, and you're going to get your vacation, and everything is sorted. And of course, all depending on the size of the company, you'll always be all right unless you mess up completely.
Yeah.
But at the other end of it, there is no pot at the end of the rainbow. So we're kind of like pirates looking for the adventure and also the fortune. But also just the journey itself is interesting. It's not necessarily that we all need to become millionaires or billionaires. It's not that on its own. Money in its own right is fine. I would love to have $1 billion, but it's actually the journey itself that's super interesting as well. And the idea of trying to build something amazing, right?
Absolutely.
And when you meet other people like that, you know instantly. And conversely, when you meet people who are not at all like that, then sometimes like we don't have that common interest at all.
Oil and water, right? It's like oil and water.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one thing that a lot of people speak about is their journey from, let's say, like you said, you started a little bit of an entrepreneurial journey as a youngster, mowing lawns. A lot of our guests used to work at, like you said, at a company. They kind of get an understanding of how this company operates, what they do, and then they identify a problem and they say, I can do this better than them. And then sometimes that's where the jump happens. But you built quite a few businesses even from scratch. So for those that don't know,
this is not the end of it. I've built other businesses too.
I know we only touched on the first sale, so there's more that's coming after that, the second half. But
I think I've always had this. I've got this Pippi Longstocking syndrome where I'm like, I've never done that before, but I'm sure I can do it, and brilliantly at that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit it's naive and arrogant in a way, but it also leads to some fun adventures, right? So
Absolutely.
I'm like, I get these crazy ideas. I bounce off of my twin brother or our friends, and we're like, why doesn't this product or this service, why does it not exist already? And if we get that idea, we just immediately think, maybe we should do it. Can't be that hard. We should just, get going, and then we'll see
put it together.
Let's
do some write some code.
Yeah. and obviously, when you have that cavalier attitude, sometimes you make it and sometimes you don't. And
absolutely.
Yes, I've been part of some businesses that we sold off, but I've also been like after coming back from Thailand, I did sushi for a number of years. Then we did this mobile phone company, and then after that, I actually got into a company making hi-fi systems. So kind of like Bang & Olufsen, we were doing like top-notch Danish design. But we're gonna make a lifestyle product. I got a partner, my sister's ex-boyfriend's father. Yeah, he'd been in this audiophile industry for a number of years, 10, 15, 20 years, many years. And he was a brilliant designer, and he'd come up with this superb design, I thought. Well, a lot of other people thought so as well, because we actually managed to get a partnership agreement with the Japanese Pioneer, and they were going to be our partner in crime and everything. It was going to be amazing. We partnered up with them, and at the end of it, the product became quite a lot more expensive than we had thought it would be. And right as we were about to launch, the crisis of 2008 and 2009, that just came right at that same time. So by the time we were ready to finally launch, nobody wanted to buy expensive hi-fi equipment. And so the company got bankrupt. I lost a lot of money in the process, and that was a tough pill to swallow, because we really had an amazing product, the perfect partners. We had the whole sales system all set up. Everything was just ready to go, and then we just ran out of cash at the wrong time. And when we did run out of cash, our investors were like, "No, not now. Sorry, right now we have to make sure that we have enough money, and we don't know about the crisis. How big is it going to be? How long is it going to last, and all that."
Right place, wrong time.
Yeah, right idea, wrong time, or poor execution. It's easy to always to say it's someone else's fault. At the end of the day, it's probably also our own poor execution. Had we been faster and had our product ended up costing what we thought it should, maybe we would have been the next Sonos. You never know about these things.
Absolutely. So we're considered, let's say, a North Star for some people that are looking to make that jump. And let's say they've watched a couple of these episodes and they've seen a couple of the guests, and they're like, this sounds a bit more convincing now. I want to know more, though. What is it like, Niels, to build a business from scratch?
What is it like? It's hard, and it's fun. It's if you've been in corporate or just being hired by someone else, you know that you always just have to nod your head and say, "You say jump," and I say, "Hi, how high?" And when you're your own owner, you're your own man. It's a whole different thing, because you get to decide. And also, if the sun is shining and if you don't want to work, you can go lay out in the sun. And then maybe you're working for the entire weekend afterwards. So everything is a lot more flexible. You decide what to do, when to do it, how to do it, who you're going to partner up with, if you're going to take some crazy risks or not, and all those things. And that's a huge adrenaline rush. And when you do succeed, it's also an amazing feeling, because all of a sudden you're going from making a salary to making a salary and watching your own business grow in value. And you can see, hey man, we've got something here. Now we are actually worth something. People want to invest in us, and more and more customers are coming to get our product, and that's the best feeling at all. And even if on the way there, if you have a product and people like your product and give you feedback, that could be just such an amazing feeling.
Absolutely.
And that you can have that in the same sense to some extent when you're working for someone else, but when it's your own product and you thought of it from the very get-go, you actually made this thing and people like it, that's worth the whole thing for me.
I remember that. I remember my first win when I started my agency. It was a couple of wins after that. I started the agency in September of 2020, 6 months after the pandemic. Everybody said I was nuts. They said, just wait, don't quit. It's dangerous. We have COVID. You don't know what's going to happen. I said, I am not doing this shit anymore. I'm going to do my own thing. And my best friend at the time, he was living with me. He had just went through a divorce, sold his house. So he had about £80,000 that he could spend. And we said, let's go build an appointment setting company. And I thought it was the most genius idea ever, until I found out that there were 1,000 appointment setting companies that I was competing with. I was like, holy shit, there's so many people that do this. But we ended up closing our first 2 clients. The first client I closed on the 3rd day of cold calling. It was incredible. My 4th or 5th call, no word of a lie, I bought Cognizant, which is a data provider, bought mobiles. I always used to have to source everything manually, and the fact that I could just download a list of mobiles and call from the platform, I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. And then I called the guy, Gary Montgomery. I still remembered him to this day from Agenor Consultancy. I never even knew, but Agenor is a Greek god. And he goes, yeah, cool. Let's have a meeting. Spoke to them 2 weeks later. We had our first £2,500 contract, and we had to deliver the rest of it to get the other 2.5. Then I landed 2 more after that. 7 months into my third client, who I worked with at the previous company, she said, Shane, she was the biggest pain in the butt. We don't speak anymore, but she said, Shane, you are the most expensive vendor I have, but you're actually the most successful. I've closed 100,000 euros in new business revenue because of your service.
Wow.
And I was like, holy shit, this is fucking incredible. Let's do more. And then that was this. It would just became a case of how many zeros can I add to a contract? And we got them up in 8 months to 128,000 for 6 months. And it was, again, a service related business for appointment setting. Most of service companies for appointment settings, they get like $100 a meeting. We were charging £1,000 to £1,500 per meeting.
Wow.
And we were doing really, I was running a 51% net profit margin, not gross, net profit margin. And we were flying. We were doing really, really good. But then life hit me, and those ups and downs, they became more downs. But one thing that helped me through that was because I've been through so many adverse situations. This is what I want to speak to you about. I went through a lot of adverse situations, and I always knew that when times got tough, it was a learning lesson from the man upstairs that something good is coming around the corner, and that always gave me hope. So for you, you went through a ton of experiences where life went like this, and they actually say that when life goes like this, it moves faster than a consistent kind of roll downhill. It actually does.
It's probably true.
Right?
I haven't been bored.
So for you, what got you through those hard times, and what was taught, or what was shown to you to help you get through hard times when you wanted to give up?
That's a good question. I think I've always had a really, really strong belief in myself and in my own intuition. So even when things have been worst, I've not been shook so much in the idea of what I did was right, even when they turned out to be wrong or poorly executed. But I've always still, liked the idea of it. So I think the hardest times have been like financially, when you don't know how am I going to pay for the next rent, and that's not an easy situation to be in. And as much as your friends love you and want to support you, there's an end to how much they can do that. And it's also not a really nice feeling to have to call up your mate and say, listen, man, I haven't got enough money to pay my rent next month. Could you lend me so-and-so, But I've always, it's just that need to do it. It's like a calling. And when you have that fire in your belly, it's really hard to give it up. Even when I've been on my worst, my poorest, with no idea what I was going to do next, the idea of just giving up and going back to just working for the man, it's just like, I can't do it.
Not an option.
I just can't do it. I just want to do my own. I want to do my own thing. I need to do it, and then we'll see where it takes us. And I'm also silly enough to say, well, at least I'm still here now, and I'm getting older and older. And somehow with this crazy recipe of mine, I actually do manage to live another year every year. So even when I do mess up, I guess somehow I manage to squeeze myself through somehow. Yeah.
I think that is what it is. I remember my business partner taught. I'll never forget this line, but it was the end of the year. I think it was December 2022. One of our clients we had sent a contract to them for, I think it was £35,000, and my business partner forgot to write the amount in the contract.
Okay.
So when it came to claiming the second invoice, the CEO of that company, he agreed on the original amount, but for some reason he pushed back and he didn't pay the full amount. So I was short on payroll, and I had to break it to the team right before Christmas, what I could and what I couldn't do. And thankfully, my team was so supportive. I wasn't able to pay myself, but I ended up getting them paid. And he said, look, I don't see runway. I don't see enough runway for us to continue this. I think we might have to shut the company down. And I said, are you sure you've tried everything? Literally everything. He said, I don't know how to get around HMRC. So I said, all right, let me see what I can do. Called up HMRC. I said, look, I don't have the money. And they said, okay, cool. Just make a payment plan. And I said, wait a second. Are you serious? They said, yeah, it's fine. Just make a payment plan. And that was when my relationship started to break down with my business partner, because at that point it was, if you can't believe in the future of our journey and you're ready to give up, and I can find a solution within minutes and I can still have that belief, there's no need for us to continue this journey. 5 months later, it actually broke down, which is unfortunate. But that was what helped me get, it's like the amount of money these problems cost you help you make the equivalent in more money down the road, I think. And I was watching a podcast the other day, and Tony Robbins was, I don't know, I'm sure you know who Tony Robbins
I
is.
know. Yeah.
He said he was doing a business deal with somebody, and he got screwed over for 125 million. And he said, it's okay though, because if I didn't have a problem that cost me 125 million, I wouldn't have learned how to become a billionaire. And he said, the one thing that actually helped me become so successful, and it's what makes every single business executive successful, entrepreneur successful, is one thing. And I said it in a post the other day. Do you know what that thing is? That one thing is?
Resilience, I would think.
It's patterns, identifying patterns.
Okay, yeah, I can see
Okay.
that.
And centuries ago, thousands and thousands of years ago, the only thing that allowed people to stay in the same place, build communities, build cities, was identifying patterns. And it's very simple to figure out, okay, but what patterns? It was seasons. It was spring, summer, fall, and winter. Harvesting food in the colder months, so you have, or the warmer months, so you had food in the colder months, gathering warmth, fire, learning how to do all that. And he said the same thing applies in business, because once you can start to identify those patterns from when you start, you're building your foundation, the first set of problems, then you iterate, then you start seeing these problems with your first 10 people, then you iterate, then you grow. And these patterns, they feel like they remain consistent. For you, are there any patterns that you've identified throughout your journey that have remained consistent for you on your journey to success? Let's even be a little bit more specific on your journey to success.
I don't know if I've had that huge success yet, enough to recognize patterns as such. I feel like I've done like some pretty different things. I don't know if I can recognize any patterns as such. No, I don't think that I can.
Can you identify one? Can you think of one pattern that you've seen in all the startups that you've seen and you've helped them grow? Is there any pattern that you can see is very familiar to you?
If there's one key identifier, I would rather say, than just a pattern. It is that it's really about social relationships. The people that you work with, and the relationships that you make. If you get blindsided and start working with dodgy people or hire the wrong people for the wrong reasons, then it all falls apart. Whereas if you stick to the right people with a high level of integrity, that's what really gets you on the right journey for me.
You know what? Out of all the guests that I've had on, I've had over 300 guests now in the past 18 to 20 months. 90% of them have always said people.
Okay,
People is one of the biggest drivers for growth and for success in your company. Yeah, and one thing that was really cool, one of the guests that I saw, I never thought about it in this way. He said, when you're an entrepreneur or you're in charge of running a business as a CEO, whatever the case may be, your responsibility is to create wealth for your employees. Yes. It's to help them put food on the table. It's to help them buy their new car, for them to have Christmas, a good Christmas.
But not just that, because I think a lot of us, with the talents we have, I think we would be able to find our money somewhere else, and a job, and pay for rent, etc. I think it's really about the environment and the team spirit. And I don't mean it like a yay team spirit, let's go, hooray, but more like the feeling of working together, the vibe. And
exactly.
I find this at our new company here, MEGA. It's really an incredible team. Of course, we're all patting each other on each other's backs, and it's like, yeah, you're great too, and all that. But I could really feel from day one when I walked into these offices, the team spirit is amazing. Everybody is like super nice, and everybody really wants this to happen. And everybody has an amazing set of qualifications too. I think Peter and Martin have managed to put together a really, really strong team. And that, I think, could be one of the very key factors to making this a big success. So, yeah, let's see where it goes.
Okay, so before we jump into the AI segment, one last question on personality or just even experience in itself. What is the best advice you've ever got from a coach and or mentor that helped shape who you are today?
I think that's just keep grinding. Don't take no for an answer, and don't believe in all the haters. You have to stick to your idea and just grind away, because
I love it.
there's always going to be someone out there says, I don't think that's going to be such a good idea. Well, that's why you're not an entrepreneur, mate. Right?
I love that. It's very true.
Yeah.
The naysayers, right?
And then afterwards, and when you manage to succeed with something, they said, yeah, I knew that would work. I said so right from the get-go. No, you did not, actually. You were one of the ones who did not believe in the idea.
It's so true.
And when you're building your own business and you have all these crazy ideas and you don't have to listen to anybody. I mean, I've had people telling me so many times, that's a good idea, Niels, but I'm sorry, but it can't be done. And I'm like, why? Whoever told you it can't be done? It can be done. Let's try it. And if it can't be done, it can't be done, but let's try it. And nine times out of 10, it can be done. You just have to, find wiggle room, approach it in your own way, and then iterate. You'll get it done.
Solve enough problems, right?
Yeah,
Solve enough problems, and
break
you'll
the
get
bigger
to
problems into smaller problems. Then you'll always get there in the end.
So from now we'll touch on the AI segment. And from 2000, let's just say, when you really started to get your feet wet in the employment world, up until today, from your first, let's say, exposure to what AI is or could be back in the early 2000s to what it is today, what's your view on how it has evolved?
I think it's evolved from cutesy little things on your phones and the computer into now being something that's going to be all-consuming. I mean, right now, I think every single day I see new things done with AI where I think, wow, that is crazy that they can do that. Even though that I kind of know that they can do this type of thing, then I see a new product, a new service, a new platform, and I think I really wouldn't have imagined that. But of course, yes, that's and since like all the LLMs and all these AI products, that's still really, really new in the market. It's only like 2, 3, 4 years old. I think it's going to be so crazy what we're going to see over the next 5, 10 years or so. I just read this the other day. Someone said this is going to be the new cryptocurrency. If you're not on board now, you're going to really lose out, because this is going to be so massive. It's like everywhere. And even people are afraid that it's going to take over from us humans. I don't think so. I think it's just going to make us small. The pie is just going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Now I can see we solve so many problems now, where before we would be like, okay, let me Google on that. And then you're sitting there for hours on end. Now you're just like, okay, let's ask ChatGPT. Boom. And then if you haven't got the answer, at least you've got a fairly good idea to where to look and how to approach your problem, right? So we get so much more done in the same amount of time, and it's such an amazing thing to interact with these AIs, I think.
So how do you think, so usually we focus on, you could take your pick, usually we focus on how should sales and marketing teams be using AI in their business to add more revenue. We are focusing on operational efficiency with debt collection and finance, but out of those two, sales and marketing and operations, which one are you closer to? In your history, let's say throughout your career.
I've always been in sales to some extent, but at the same time, since I've also built my own businesses, I'm also been part of the executive suite. So it's like a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and I think it can be super helpful in both areas and in all areas.
Okay, I want you to speak to the executives, the C-suite leaders. Then, so how should C-suite executives be using AI in their business today to add more revenue? Or to cut costs? You can use both if you want.
Good question. How do they do that? I don't know if I have that one right answer just yet. Actually,
just an opinion off the cuff. What do you think? What do you think they should be using AI for to add more revenue in their business?
I think for most major decisions, I think it would be a great idea to bounce it off the AI bots. Just like you would with a partner, because they really come up with some clever answers, and it's almost like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You can get to call a friend, or you can get to eliminate 2 out of the 4 right answers. But you can also ask the audience, and the one of the 3 options that is always the best is actually to ask the audience. because
Yeah.
the audience almost always know the right answer. And I think it's kind of like the same thing with the LLMs. It's not that they necessarily know the precise answer, but if you ask an LLM, it's going to get super, super close. So
Yeah.
if you're in doubt and you throw that answer, that question at an LLM, it's going to get you very close to where you want to go.
I think so too. Every single thing that I've done at Mega in the past year, it took me 4 years to build my agency and to get my operation right. Again, I never knew how to onboard a client. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to invoice it properly. I didn't know how to send a contract back and create automation so that it came back quicker. That entire 4 years, I was able to compress that time and all the data and my strategies and put it into AI, put it into GPT and say, I want to build this at this new company. Give me the playbook.
Yeah,
I've ran this whole company, this whole pipeline, this $7.5 million pipeline that we've created over the past year, all with GPT.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
all with GPT. It's incredible.
And now you can
So
see companies being built that would normally be built by 100 or 1,000 people, and 2 or 3 people can build it over a couple of weeks. Of course, you also have to have a clever mind and know how to use the right prompts. But once you get into that and you learn by every prompt you send to ChatGPT or whichever bot you're using, the results can be just amazing. And I
I
think it
think
actually
that's
can be, and if you're not really strong at it yet, I think it can be super good to even just watch some of those YouTube videos on how to use those systems. You're like, oh, of course, yeah, fucking hell, yeah. It's amazing.
So I think what sets me apart and people like yourself is because we've ran the playbook and we've gone through the problems and the successes when we're building companies, we know what prompts to give to get the outcomes again,
Yes,
right?
it,
It
it
needs to
really
go.
helps when you've been in the business before and if you've run a company before. So I'm not saying that everybody can just use it to great effects. But at the same time, I think everybody can use it to some effect, and then you will learn over time.
Absolutely.
I think
So
maybe our little team with all the different profiles we have, I mean, we are well qualified to use these bots.
it's I think one thing to be is very curious, and for those then that don't know how to really get their prompts right. My mother, for example, the other day I had to tell her she's looking at rebuilding her beauty salon, and it's like she does mediumship, and I told her go read the Chet Holmes Ultimate Sales Machine book, one of
Mhm.
the best books in the world on sales, and ask questions like this. How do I build this business now with all the stuff I've learned? I want to focus on this. This is my ICP. What does ICP mean, Shane? This is what it means. Ideal customer profile. How do you understand the channels? Imagine you're interviewing these types of customers. What are the pain points? So if you were to give an opinion or just some insights onto those newbies who are watching this and want to get accustomed to AI, how do they get better at prompt engineering?
Like I said, I would really just spend like 1 or 2 days on YouTube and then just pause the video, go to ChatGPT, ask it something, see what comes out, and then you learn by doing. And I think most people with half a brain can get pretty good at it within a couple of weeks' time.
Agreed, agreed. So, what would you say your predictions are then for the next, let's say, let's keep it narrowed, for the next 6 months with how AI will evolve in our industry?
Just 6 months from now. Uh, I think the change is going to be huge, but I don't think it's going to be that fast because there's still pushback. There's still a lot of people who don't want to integrate it into their businesses, into their lives, etc. I think a lot of people will still be using it for the funny little bits where you get it to write your paper or an email to your friend, etc., etc. I think though the big changes we'll see over more like a couple of years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then then you're going to see a completely different landscape. And I can't even describe that to you because it's way beyond what we can imagine right now.
Insane.
I think we're gonna automate a lot of the admin work, a lot of the boring stuff, and then hopefully people can really use their creativity on other areas. So I don't think we're gonna get into a situation where the AIs will take over anything. We'll just put them to do the work we don't want to do ourselves. And that's beautiful. That's amazing.
Exactly. I've always said that too. I said if AI is about to take your job probably sucks, or you suck at your job. That's one of two ways,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But and if it does take away, it will put you in a higher position so that you man the bot, right? Or you
Yes,
man the AI, and
yes.
that's where I think the biggest opportunity is. It's the ability to reduce those lower level tasks so you can focus on more strategic issues. And That's one thing I was taught a couple of years ago, and it's really, really remained true. But one thing that is always at the top of everybody else's mind, above will AI take my job, are the concerns around compliance, ethics, fraud, whatever the case may be. What are your biggest concerns for how AI is used or will be used?
Well, all those things obviously can be pretty big factors. I think we're gonna code our way out of it. I think we're gonna implement systems to also detect the fraudulent systems and all of these things. But at the same time, we have a lot of these problems already in our existing world. It's not like it's just creating a completely new set of problems. It's just translating those same problems into AI problems, right? We already have a huge amount of fraud and scammers, etc. As soon as you open your computer, it's gonna explode in your head. So I think we're gonna be able to manage just fine. And then we'll have tools. I'm sure there's gonna actually be a lot of companies built on that exact problem. How do we avoid getting scammed by AI bots?
I just got scammed on Facebook Marketplace 48 hours ago.
Yeah, you
Forget
told
AI.
me. I don't think that had anything to do with AI, mate.
Nothing to do with AI. Unbelievable. So, Niels,
On the
you
contrary, I think if you'd asked ChatGPT whether he should have gotten that vehicle or not, he would have maybe said, check A, B, and C. Take it down to your mechanic first, have him drive around for a bit, and then he'll tell you whether to get it or not.
the truth of the matter is, I did do that.
You did?
And ChatGPT said you are making a very risky decision right now, in its own words. And it said hire a mechanic. Get your best advice is to get a pre-inspection before buying a car. Do this. I did Google it, and again, where business, you will get killed in business and in life if you're not patient. You
Right,
need to
yes.
act fast. You need to decide fast. You need to execute even faster. But you also need to be patient and risk averse. And what I didn't do was the guy said, I'll be there at 2 to sell the car to you. The pre-inspection guy said, I can only be there at 4. I did my own inspection. And my own inspection cost me a bunch of money that I have now lost. So that's that just goes to show my decision making capabilities, even at my age, through all my mistakes. So look, Niels,
But the funny thing is,
we're
though, just like I said, had you actually listened to ChatGPT's advice, you might have avoided the problem, right? And I
I
think
would have.
with so many other things, if you get a crazy email from somebody who wants to sell you a bridge and you ask ChatGPT, does this seem valid or not? It'll probably tell you, that seems too good to be true.
Yeah.
And then it's better to not go for that risk, yeah.
I'm going to use ChatGPT and I should be singing from my own hymn sheet, but I'm going to be using ChatGPT in a little bit more of a strategic fashion from today. So, Niels, we're at the top of the hour, and I think we're going to have another episode for the rest of your journey from the first sale of Vodafone to what you're doing now. And I think there's much, much, much more time to go into a lot more detail. But for the top of the hour, are there any last words that you like to share with the audience? How can they communicate with you? How can they ask you more on your journey, find out more about your story? Where's the best place to communicate with you?
Yeah, for now, thank you so much. It's been a sheer pleasure. You can always find us all on MEGA.AI, and you can find my email as nb as in Niels Bjorndahl at MEGA.AI. So you're always welcome to contact me for business or for chit chat, whatever.
And LinkedIn? Do you like to be hit up on LinkedIn?
Yes, for sure. I'm not even sure what my LinkedIn is, but it's probably just / Niels Bjorndahl.
All right then. Well, guys, look, that's the.
But you can find me.
Of
You can find me via MEGA as well on LinkedIn.
yeah, he is. He's available there. I'll put all your details at the bottom of the description here anyway, so people can find it.
Yeah. Hit me up on LinkedIn.
And absolutely. So look, that is the episode. That is a wrap, and we will see you again next week for more. So thank you very much, Niels.
You too, Shane. Always a pleasure. Take care. Cheers.